On a rainy evening in Rome, something was about to happen inside the Vatican that would shake not just the city, but the entire Catholic world. 12 of the most powerful men in the church were waiting in one of the most sacred rooms, expecting just another meeting. But deep down, maybe some of them already knew that everything was about to change. The Pope, a man who had been in office for only 2 months, was about to do something so bold, so unthinkable, that the very foundation of 1,000 years of Vatican tradition would start to crack. This Pope was not like any before him. He was not born in a palace or raised among cardinals. He was Cardinal James Provost from Chicago, a man who had worked in the toughest neighborhoods in America and the poorest villages in Peru. From the moment he became Leo XIV, people inside the Vatican whispered that this would not be a safe, quiet reign. Leo had seen the problems facing the church: falling attendance, growing scandals, hard questions no one wanted to answer on. He felt the weight of those problems on his heart for years. He could not ignore the contradictions anymore. Why did the Vatican hold so much wealth while the poor suffered? Why did the leaders of a church built on the teachings of a humble carpenter live in luxury and cling to ceremonies that seemed to belong to a lost world? Leo had asked himself these questions again and again, and now he was finally in a place to answer them, not with words, but with real action. That Tuesday, as rain poured over St. Peter's Square, Leo stood alone in his study, looking out the window, thinking about what he was about to do. He knew that with a few sentences, he would declare war on centuries of old customs, and that the battle would not be easy. His assistant came to tell him the cardinals were waiting, but Leo made them wait a little longer. He needed time to pray, to remember who he was really serving. Because he knew that the real test of leadership is not pleasing those in power, but staying true to a higher calling. This was not the first time Leo had ignored tradition. Since his election, he had chosen to live in a simple guest house, eating with regular workers in the cafeteria and answering his own phone. The old guard watched in silent horror as he broke one custom after another, but Leo cared nothing for their approval. He only cared about being honest, about doing what he believed was right. When he finally entered the meeting room, there was no ceremony, no fancy greetings. Just Leo in his plain white robe, standing before the cardinals, who all sat around an ancient table, waiting for the routine to begin. But Leo was not here for routine. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice steady, but strong, "tomorrow I am announcing changes some of you will find difficult." The room went silent. Cardinal Raleigh, known for defending tradition, tried to hide his discomfort. "What kind of changes, Holy Father?" Leo said nothing for a moment. Then he put a folder on the table. "First, I'm dissolving the pontifical household." The reaction was instant shock, outrage, and even anger. The pontifical household had managed papal ceremonies for 1,000 years. Now, in one sentence, Leo had ended it. "The household is essential for the dignity of the papal office." Cardinal Tamarasi protested, but Leo looked him in the eye. Did Christ have a court? Did Jesus have masters of ceremony? He paused, letting the silence speak. "The money we save will go to refugee aid. The decision is final." The room was stunned. Cardinal Hoffmann from Germany stood up, face red with anger. "You can't do this." But Leo interrupted. "I consulted with the Gospels. They were clear. The church doesn't need more ceremony. It needs more service." That was just the beginning. The next day, every news channel in the world flashed the headlines. Pope abolishes medieval court. Vatican in shock. Leo XIV dismantles 1,000 years of tradition. But Leo was far from finished. As his secretary ran in, worried about calls and messages from bishops everywhere, Leo calmly sipped his coffee and read a verse from his old Bible. "Whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all." His phone buzzed. It was a message from Sister Maria, his friend from Peru. "The poor are rejoicing. The rich are trembling. You're on the right path." Leo smiled and moved on to the next big reform. No pope had ever attended a Vatican bank board meeting before. The bank managed billions for the church and was supposed to be independent, but Leo was about to end that too. Imagine the faces of the bankers when the Pope himself walked in. No warning, no formal introduction. The chairman tried to act calm, but it was clear he was shaken. "I've reviewed the bank's holdings," Leo announced. "Effective immediately, we're selling all investments in arms, fossil fuels, and any company with human rights violations." The room exploded in panic. "Such a move will cost the Vatican millions," the chairman argued. Leo replied coldly. "Our charitable works depend on our moral authority, not our investment portfolio." He slammed a document on the table. "From now on, all investments must align with Catholic teaching." Another board member protested about the bank's independence. Leo answered softly, "The bank exists to serve the church's mission, not to grow rich. Christ did not give investment advice to the money changers. He drove them out." Then he turned and left, leaving the room in stunned silence. By now, chaos was everywhere. Ambassadors were being called home. Major donors threatened to cut funding. The College of Cardinals met in emergency sessions. Cardinal Valenti, the Secretary of State, was trying to keep everything under control, but it felt like a dam about to break. He went to find Leo in his private chapel, only to find the Pope praying, "Holy Father, the college is talking about extraordinary measures. There are whispers about removing you, maybe even declaring your election invalid." Leo stood, calm, as ever. "Let them try. The Holy Spirit did not bring me here to be silenced by fear." But Leo's biggest change was still to come. He called together the heads of religious orders from all over the world, but instead of a formal audience, with all the usual traditions, Leo had everyone sit in a simple circle. He spoke plainly, "Renewal cannot come from me alone. It must come from those closest to the poor, to the people." Sister Guadalupe from South America spoke up, worried about the backlash. But Leo replied, "The fiercer the backlash, the more necessary the reform." Then he made the announcement that would send even more shockwaves. He was forming a new commission on church governance. Half the members would be women, half would be from the global south, and they would have real authority. For centuries, power had always been in the hands of a few men in Rome. Now Leo was opening the door to people who had never held it before. "This will be seen as revolutionary," said one Jesuit. "Not revolutionary restorative," Leo corrected. The early church was led by communities, not courts. 3 days later, St. Peter's Square was packed, despite the threat of rain. Leo refused the traditional ornate robes and gold mitre, wearing only simple white as he stepped onto the balcony. The crowd grew quiet. "Brothers and sisters," Leo began, "I come to you not as a prince, but as a servant. For too long, the church has been locked in its own grandeur. Today I announce that the Vatican will sell 1/3 of its art and property. The money will go to help refugees, climate action, and fighting poverty. The wealth of the church belongs to the poor. It is time to return what was never truly ours." In the media room, a technician whispered, "Can he do this?" No one could answer. The revolution was being broadcast live, and nobody knew how to stop it. Meanwhile, the College of Cardinals argued for hours, some demanding Leo's removal, others defending him. Cardinal Santos from the Philippines finally stood up. "Maybe we should ask what traditions matter, the gold thrones, or feeding the hungry." The room was split. Leo sat quietly through all the shouting. At last he stood and spoke. "When procedures preserve injustice, they must be changed. When protocols protect privilege, they must be broken. I didn't take the name Leo to be a lion of power, but a lion of truth. Tomorrow, I will pray at the tomb of St. Francis. Those who wish to understand may join me. Those who wish to oppose me are free to do so, but the spirit that brought me here is not finished." As Leo left, the cardinals continued arguing. Rain fell on Rome. The next day, the chapel in Assisi was full of people, cardinals, bishops, ordinary Catholics. Everyone wanted to see what Leo would do next. He knelt at the tomb of St. Francis, remembering the call to rebuild my church. When he stood, the room was silent. Francis heard Christ's call to rebuild a church that had grown comfortable and distant from its people. We face the same challenge now. The church's real splendor is not in gold or power, but in humble service. As he spoke, Cardinal Valenti approached with grave news. 10 cardinals had signed a document questioning Leo's election, saying his radical changes proved he was unfit. It was the closest the church had come to open division in centuries. Leo nodded. Christ warned that he came not to bring peace, but a sword. Truth divides before it unites. I ask not loyalty to me, but to the gospel. To those who oppose me, I offered not condemnation, but dialogue. Sister Guadalupe asked. And if dialogue fails, Leo's smile was sad but steady. Then we keep working. The church has faced worse storms than this. Reform is never without resistance. 3 months after that first announcement, Leo returned to the papal balcony. This time, St. Peter's Square was even more crowded. The resistance had grown, but so had his supporters.